You could please take your seats and get ready. We will start in about 30 seconds. If you could please stand for acknowledgement of country and the diversity statement. The City of Victor Harbor acknowledges the Ramangiri and the Narrandjeri people, the traditional custodians of the land and the surrounding waters where we work, live and play. We acknowledge their deep connection to country and we pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. This respect is extended to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people across Australia and those present today.
The City of Victor Harbor is committed to diversity, equity and inclusion. We respect people of all ages, abilities, religions, beliefs, cultures and backgrounds.
Would someone like to read the service acknowledgement?
We recognise the brave individuals who have served and continue to serve our nation. We remember those who have lost their lives and paid the ultimate sacrifice to our country.
Mighty God, we ask you to bless this council and allow it to be an agent of change to the people of this city and beyond. Direct and prosper its deliberations to the honouring of your name and the welfare of the people of whom it serves. Amen. Please be seated. And it's wonderful to see such a large gallery today. Thank you very much for taking the time out and for coming. It's always nice when we see so many people in Victor Harbor that really are interested in what we are doing as an elected body and as an organisation. We do have a few apologies and leave of absence today. We have Councillor Michael Quinton is on leave and David Kemp is also on leave, and we have an apology from Councillor Burns. We have two items before we get to the minutes that have been adjourned, and so our adjourned items always come first in the agenda. So 4.1 is an adjourned item relating to the arts and cultural programming commitment and funding. The current motion before the council, which was moved by Councillor Angela Schiller and seconded by Councillor Michael Quinton, is that council approves a 3-year commitment for the continuation of the arts and cultural program commencing from the 1st of July 2024, inclusive of maintaining the services of a full-time arts and cultural facilitator to deliver the program. Even though we have had some discussion on this, I will say that those people that spoke on it previously are able to speak to it again if you'd like to, because I'm sure people won't remember what it is that you said a month ago. So I'll ask Councillor Schiller first of all, if, as you moved it, whether or not you want to speak to that again. No? Does anybody else want to speak to this? Thank you, Councillor Henderson.
Unfortunately, I wasn't at the previous meeting and I'm not sure why it was adjourned, because I can't see any reason why it should have been. I think it's essential that we approve a 3-year commitment for the continuation of arts and culture and also the continuation of a full-time facilitator. We have all the information in the attachment here that what we've achieved over the last 5.5 years with a coordinator and with the establishment of the Arts and Culture Advisory Group, I think speaks for itself. Procurement of Main Street Art, Meringue Mosaic Project, increased frequency and quality of the artisan markets, the Victor Cinema, broader community, creative uses, and the list goes on. And it's also stimulated input to the arts and cultural idea, if you like, from businesses around the town, putting up their own art pieces because they can see that we're becoming a vibrant art and cultural community. When the Arts and Culture Advisory Group and the position of an arts facilitator was created, it was the first time that this council had the opportunity to bring together all of the people in our community interested in arts and culture. And bringing them together, they could then tell us what they required to carry on doing what they're doing. But it also gave them the opportunity to mix with one another, groups that may not have had any reason to meet together before. They all came together in the Coral Street Art Space to discuss their future ideas. And I think that is what a community needs. We need this communal input so everyone knows what everyone else's interests are. We can all work towards the future to create those things. We also have, as a result of our performing arts group, many of whom are in the room tonight, some very, very interesting success stories. And I think one of those successful young people is in the room tonight, I believe. The Choral and Arts Society has shown how well good regional practice can develop and showcase the talents of local people. 2 of the members have been recognised nationally. One has been selected to study for a Bachelor of Fine Arts and Technical Theatre at NIDA, a fantastic accolade. And the second has been selected to perform with the Australian Shakespeare Theatre in Melbourne, also a very notable recognition. We also need to
Got 1 minute left.
continue to have artists and community
30 seconds. Councillor
artists and community members involved in the ongoing plans for the Coral Street Art Space. The budget requirement for this is very, very small compared to some of our other budget plans, and I think it's essential that we have this in the budget for next year.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Does anybody else want to speak to this? Councillor Karembo?
Thank you, Mayor. I do acknowledge that arts and culture is a big part of this community, and the reason I put the motion up was not to shut it down per se, but was to actually look at things holistically. There's a very tight budget, and I guess we have to start prioritising, you know, between needs and wants. And I'm not saying this is one or the other, but I think we need to look at the budget holistically, and I don't think bringing this forward now would allow that. But at the end of the day, the chamber will vote. I guess my only other question is for the CEO. Does this add to our operating deficit?
Through the Mayor, this is to do the 24-25 financial year. We haven't ascertained whether we have a surplus or deficit yet.
Okay.
It's a continuation of an existing program, so it's currently within our existing budget. It's
Okay.
not. It doesn't affect the deficit because that's
That's
to do
it.
with the current financial year.
All right, and I guess the other question was, I'm trying to understand, because I remember Country Arts SA came here and gave us a big spiel about how important arts were, but then they've pulled their funding. Is there a reason why they've done that? Did they give you a reason, or is they just moved the money somewhere else?
I'll answer that, Councillor Karembo. So Country Arts SA usually fund these sorts of things for 2 years. We were really lucky and they gave us 6 years funding. So they can't continue giving us funding. We've had it for 6 years. Normally it's just 2 years. So they've had to stop that now.
Okay, so they just don't think they need to fund anymore, or?
Well, as I said, usually they fund these for 2 years as a startup. They do it just for 2 years to get it going. They funded us for 6 years because they were very impressed with it, and they need to fund somebody else of their
Sure.
startup.
Not a problem, thanks.
Does anybody else have any other questions or anything they'd like to say? Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Mayor Jenkins. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with points Councillor Henderson's raised around the importance of this position and that ongoing support from Council. And but I guess I also agree with Councillor Karembo in relation to the tight budget that we've also got to keep in mind and be considerate of. And again, I guess the $70,000 of loss of income or loss of support from Country Arts SA doesn't help in terms of making the perfect balance with this. But I think from that workshop with Country Arts SA was the prospect of new and exciting partnerships or other grant potential. And so I guess with that in mind, I think it's important for Council to look at funding this, but also keep in mind of looking back in 3 years' time to see where have Country Arts come to the table in terms of those bigger projects, and hopefully we can deliver some excellent projects and continue to grow our arts locally. But I think we just have to be mindful of that, and as we commit to the arts space. I think in turn for Country Arts to also do the same. I think it's a good partnership, and I hope that we continue to foster that one and grow arts locally.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Schiller, do you want to close the debate? No? All right, then I'll now put it to the vote. And the recommendation is that Council approves the 3-year commitment for the continuation of the Arts and Culture program commencing from 1st of July, inclusive of maintaining the services of a full-time arts and cultural facilitator to deliver the program. All those in favour? And those against? That's carried. Thank you very much. Can I have a division, please? All those in favour? And you do have a chance to change your mind in a division if you want to. Councillor Mann, Councillor Mackenzie, Councillor Schiller, Councillor Schofield and Councillor Henderson. Thank you. You can sit down. And those against, Councillor Karemba. That is carried. And I'd just like to congratulate the council. I think that this is a great opportunity for the council to invest more in its arts and culture. We have amazing Indigenous art in the Coral Street art space now, and an exhibition place for local artists. There's a number of people, young people, Indigenous people, and community people on the Arts and Cultural Advisory Group. And because of the group and because of the work that the Arts and Cultural Facilitator does, we've got rolling exhibitions that are of a very high calibre going through there. And certainly the Victor Harbour Coral Street Arts is very well known and is becoming more and more well known throughout South Australia. So congratulations to everybody who's here, who's involved in the arts. We now move on to item 4.2, which is also an adjourned item. Councillor Quinton moved this and Councillor Schofield seconded it. And the recommendation before Council is that Council receive and note the key themes received from the community consultation as provided in attachment A, and this is related to the Victor Harbour Investment Attraction Strategy, and adopt the 2023 to 2027 Victor Harbour Investment Attraction Strategy as provided at attachment B. As with the previous item, if you've already spoken, I invite you to speak again. And Councillor Schofield, as you seconded that item and Councillor Quinton isn't here, would you like to speak to it at all? No? Does anybody want to speak to this item? Councillor Schiller and then Councillor Karemba.
I just think that we benefited a lot by deferring this and having another look at it, and we got a better outcome by taking our time on this particular strategy.
Thank you, Councillor Schiller. Councillor Karemba?
Yeah, I was just going to concur with Councillor Schiller. Yeah, it's good to be able to get a bit more input. So I think it's a much better document for it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Mayor Jenkins. Yeah, I think it's a great document, and it's quite exciting where the day that we formally adopt it, we achieve one of the actions on there. So 5.1, advocate for and actively participate in the establishment of a regional study hub to be based in Victor Harbour. And it's very exciting that that's come through as of today. And I just want to commend the CEO, her staff, and particularly the RDA and the other councils we've worked with to bring that about in Victor Harbour. I think it's very exciting and goes towards the intent of this this plan and the policy, and excited to see more actions ticked off under it.
Yes, that was very, very exciting news to get this morning. I think it will be a huge boost for Victor Harbour and Victor Harbour's economy and keeping young people here. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Item 5.1, minutes of the previous meeting being 26th of February. The recommendation is that those are confirmed as true and accurate. Would someone like to move that way? Thank you, Councillor Schiller, seconding Councillor Schofield. Does anybody have any questions about those minutes or anything they'd like to debate? If not, all those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. 5.2, minutes of the special council meeting on the 13th of March. The recommendation is that those minutes be confirmed as true and accurate. Moved by councillor Henderson and seconded by councillor Mann. Does anybody have any questions, or is there any debate around those minutes? If not, all those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. We have two deputations tonight. The first deputation is from the South Coast Choral and Art Society, looking for lease-free access to 1 acre of council land. I believe we've got Julie Kelly and John Williams here. Julie and John, if you'd like to take the seats at the back, perhaps Councillor Karemba can show you how to turn the microphone on. Although being from the Choral and Art Society, you probably won't have any trouble with microphones.
Hope not. Okay, my name is, hello everyone.
Sorry, Julie, just before you start, you
Yes.
have got 10 minutes.
Yes,
And we are pretty strict with time
okay,
around deputations. So that will include any questions that there are
Okay.
from the elected members.
all right, thanks, Mayor. Yes, so my name is Julie Kelly and I'm the president of South Coast Choral and Art Society. This man alongside me is John Williams, who is the property officer of our society. And I should say that we affectionately call ourselves SCAS. Saying South Coast Choral and Art Society can be a bit of a mouthful after a while. John and I are also both life members. So I wanted to thank you for giving us this opportunity to make this presentation to you this evening. And as Mayor Mora has said, we are here primarily to seek support in acquiring some land, lease-free land. Before I go into that though, I thought it was just if I quickly give you a little bit of a profile about SCAS. So we are in our 74th year of entertaining the community of Victor Harbor and beyond. It began in 1950 with the Choral Group, which is still in existence today, obviously not with the same choristers, but it's still going. And over that time, we've had an arts group, we've had a drama, we've had an opera group. Today, our current groups consist of the choral group, the musical theatre / drama group, and the concert band group, and which is our most recent group that's formed several years ago. I'd just like to point out in the information pack that you've got, this little book, which I'll just quickly hold up. I hope you've all had a chance to read it. Haha, sorry. No, I should stop making jokes and get on. So this book was written by a real icon of our society called Pat Williams, who sadly is not with us anymore. So it was written for our 50th anniversary, and because we are very proud organisation, SCAS, of our history. So it is worth a read when you've got time. Next year we'll be 75 and we are going to write not another book, but we're certainly going to, in some sort of form, do another history of our organisation from 2000 to 2025. So, getting on with why we are here this evening. We are seeking council support to lease or be gifted a block of land of around 1 acre on which to build a shed. I'd like to also point out the mud map, which has been done by John, which is also in your package of information, which will give you a bit of a look at what we are wanting. I would like to stress right now that we are not looking for council support in dollars, because we actually have some avenues of funding for the shed. And that is going to come through grants and through some very generous funding from the Freemasons Lodge of South Australia and the Northern Territory, which fund a lot of things in this area, well, in the Fleurieu area and the rest of the South Australia and Northern Territory. So very handy, John's a Freemason. So we have very good support from them. Unfortunately, one of the rules around their funding is that they are not allowed to buy land. So while we've got the funding to put a shed, we don't have the funding for the land. We have tried lots of other avenues, and as a non-profit organisation, we are never going to be able to afford to buy land, ever. So that's why we've come here to seek council support. We currently spread ourselves widely across the community in terms of storage. We have 3 sheds up on 99 Canterbury Road. 2 of those is a double shed, which stores all our equipment and large props, and a small area for John and his team to construct sets. We have another shed there that stores our costumes, of which there are thousands, and we pay a yearly rental fee for that. So within we have an area above the town hall called the club rooms, and that is 2 rooms. One of those is a meeting room and storing of our more expensive equipment, and the offshoot in that other room is also stores our costumes. Again, many, many costumes and the accessories that go with that. We also pay a yearly rental fee for that. The other thing is that because we don't have a place as such, we rehearse across very many venues in Victor Harbor, all of which we pay a higher fee for. We also have paid a lot of money for the town hall hire over many years, and that would be in thousands of dollars. I know there was a change to the structure of that last year for non-for-profit community groups, which we are very appreciative of. But when we do our yearly musical, we will move into the hall anything from 4 to 6 weeks prior to opening night. That allows John to bring in the set because he can only build a very small part of that, and then he's got to build the rest in the actual town hall, and of course allow for all extra rehearsals that need to occur. So it is very important to us that we get this land on which to put this shed, and to have an opportunity to have the funding there at our doorstep is quite remarkable. We just need a place to call home. We need a place to call home. And at the moment, we're spread widely. And so we know that in the future, with the building of the Arts and Culture Centre, the part we call the club rooms will be gone. And also we believe with the relocation of the work depot, may mean that some of those sheds at Canterbury will go. I don't know how true that is, but that's something that we've heard. So we are looking to the future. We are. And we have committed to the community. We're very happy if we were to be granted this land, gifted this land. We're very happy to open it up to other community groups to use for rehearsal space, for meetings, workshops, whatever, because we certainly are a believer in the community. There's no doubt about that. So I'm just checking my notes, and I can John butt in if you need to. So I will just like to point out what else is in your package, and I know obviously you haven't had time to have a look right through it, but it's worth looking at. It shows the amazing support that we've had from our community. There are testimonials in there from some Life members, from our Youth Scholarship Award winners. Every year we award a $500 youth scholarship to a person under the age of 25 if we have a worthy recipient.
Julie, you've got 2 minutes left,
Okay,
which
thank
includes
you.
questions.
All right. And so now that's where was I going with that? Oh, yes. Also in the package, you will see a petition which has been signed from over 300 people supporting what we're asking for. So thank you for letting us come along again tonight, and please give us a place to call home. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Does any of the members have any questions? Councillor Karimba.
Thank you. Thank you for your deputation. Thank you for your community coming down tonight. So it's that land only you're asking. Is there any ongoing support that you require once you build your facility if it goes ahead?
No, I would say no. John?
I would say no.
Yes.
Okay.
So once as you'll see on the map, the shed provides, it's going to have toilets, a kitchen, obviously storage space for costumes, props, and a centre is the rehearsal space. So at this stage, we believe we can fund that through grants and things that would have to happen in the future, like obviously power, water, and that infrastructure.
Okay. And did I hear you say that you believe that if the Arts and Cultural Centre that we're designing or the council are looking at, you would actually not be in that, or you would lose some space?
Well, the club rooms in the plans, the back of the town, my understanding in the plans that I've seen from the stage backwards is not heritage, and so that will be removed. And obviously other things we put in its place, like the green room and that. But again, we would be looking at not having our own space there, because that would become a community space.
Just one question for the CEO. Was that correct? They would not be, to get clarification?
Yeah, I need to take it on notice. I know there is provision. The South Coast Choral and Arts Society have been involved in the development and the plans for the new precinct, for the new centre, but in terms of exact a replacement of those club rooms, I'd need to check the plans.
Right.
But certainly, oh yes, Graham can answer that. But obviously what the clubs are looking for is something in addition to that space for their rehearsals as well. But Graham can probably answer it too.
Yeah, through the mayor, the design for the Arts and Culture Centre, the area that you talked about, Julie, in the backspace, would be reconfigured into a multi-storey. I think it's 3 levels that include the backstage areas, green room, but also community space as well. So there are community spaces, there's tenancy spaces available. So there's a fair bit of space across the 3 floors. A lot of it is backstage area that's required for the functionality, of course, but also community spaces. And I'd probably say that council still has an exercise to allocate what those spaces would be used for as well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Just time for one quick question, Councillor Mann.
Thank you, and thank you both for coming tonight. I just clearly you've done a lot of work in terms of rallying the support behind it. I was just wondering whether there's been any informal discussions with council's administration in terms of identifying potentially some suitable land parcels.
Yeah, we have had meetings both with the mayor and with Michelle Griffiths, property officer, and they have been very supportive. We acknowledge that there are other groups that are looking for land also, other community groups, and so we know that we have to sort of wait our turn, I guess. But I guess our point, and it might sound a bit arrogant, but I'm going to say it, that for a community group that's been existing here for 74 years, I believe that we need to get the first look in. And as I said, that sounds arrogant, I know, but I don't really apologise for it, because it is my belief that we are deserving of this. I acknowledge that there are probably others that are. I just guess, Bill, we're a bit more deserving.
No, thank you for that. And I guess just quickly to the CEO as to whether there's anything you would need from the council in terms of maybe looking a bit more in depth into those investigations or identifying some of those land parcels potentially.
Through the mayor, not by way of decision. We have obviously been trying to identify a preferred site, and once we have a preferred site that would be of benefit to both Choral Arts Society and we think would work for council, we'll bring it to the chamber. The chamber ultimately needs to make the decision in terms of a land lease, but until we find a suitable site.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Julie and John, and best of luck, and we'll do what we can do in terms of looking for something that might be suitable and bring it back to the council.
Okay, thank you for your time.
We now have a deputation from Biodiversity Victor Harbour, and this is from Mark Richards. Now, Mark, I understand that you've got a USB and you're doing your deputation via your USB presentation. Is that correct? All right. So as with the previous group, you have 10 minutes, as I said, and Now, there's other people with you, Mark, so you might want to introduce them. This is unusual, giving out pot plants at a council meeting. I'm not sure whether you're trying to bribe the council or what you're trying to do, but they are very nice. So perhaps you'd like to introduce the people next to you and then give Katie the nod and she can start your presentation for you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Jenkins. Yes, what you're receiving are drooping she oaks. They're a native plant to this area. They're a plant that is used by the yellow-tailed black cockatoo and also the red-tailed black cockatoo as well. With it, interesting, the Friends of the Hindmost River have been growing these. Council this year, unfortunately, through the commercial supplier, haven't been able to access them. So we're actually giving a number of these to the professional staff to put into the river areas with it. We just thought that you might find them interesting to actually sit to see what they look like hands-on. If I may, with it, to my left-hand side, sorry, is Loretto Cameron. Most people will know Loretto. Loretto is executive committee of Biodiversity Victor Harbour. She's also the chair of Coast Care with it. And you will note in the back that we do have quite a few people from Coast Care and Friends of Hindmost River and some of our other supporters here with us. On my right-hand side is Peter Charlie. Peter Charlie is the Deputy Chair of Business Victor Harbour. Sorry, Biodiversity Victor Harbour, with it, wrong hat. With it. Peter and his wife Angela have been very strong supporters of what we've been doing and also have a property up the top end of the Hindmost area with it for 20 plus years. Have planted many thousands and thousands of seedlings. I think most may know me. My name is Mark Richards. I have sat in the chair with you guys previously. I'm a previous elected member here of the City of Victor Harbour. I'm a life member of Business Victor Harbour with it, and also now the chair of Biodiversity Victor Harbour. So thank you very much. And if it's okay, Katie, we've taped it for you. It's not David Attenborough, but it'll work.
Hello, on behalf of Biodiversity Victor Harbour, thank you for the opportunity to be with you. Our presentation is an important subject, one that impacts our whole community and future generations. It's about our natural environment, the essence of our community identity. It is why we choose to live here, and it's a recognised key economic driver for many businesses and jobs. Our focus for this discussion, however, is on the other side of the coin, the harm we are causing to the very thing which is so important to us, the loss and degradation of our natural environment and breakdown of ecosystems. We're not critical of our past 200 years, rather we're looking forward to solutions. Much of what is lost is in plain sight. Let's put this into some perspective and help understand the loss and impacts on our local community. Victor Harbour lies at the southern end of the Mount Lofty Ranges, an acknowledged biodiversity hotspot. It has lost some 90% of its woodland native vegetation. Here, in the City of Victor Harbour, local government area, we have lost some 83% of our native vegetation, dramatically impacting our local ecosystems' viability. This is not sustainable. Our natural environment needs our urgent help. Biodiversity Victor Harbour was formed on the premise of a whole of community solution to this issue. A partnership of the community, schools, government, including council, and business. No one entity can do this on their own. The most effective change comes from within, when a community comes together to address a common problem. We know our message is resonating, attracting the support of many in our community. We've been engaging in conversations, creating the foundations of partnerships. As this evolves further, ideas and solutions will emerge. We've been busy with diverse programs underway. We'd like to touch on the Community Biodiversity Nursery Hub model, which we see as a critical central element to the local solution. This is a physical presence, the visual of the positive activity. It is where members of the community will be involved. Over the next 25 years, some 1.5 million seedlings will be propagated for regeneration programs in backyards, rural environments and public space. The hub will be focused on informing, engaging, coordinating, creating and delivering programs with the focus of proactive caring for our natural environment. It'll link with schools and the proposed study hub, providing an opportunity for students and graduates as a working lab. Several sites have been suggested as possible locations. Considerable research has been completed, including engaging with expertise from within the community nursery sector. Each site was assessed against detailed criteria of location, size, site presentation, services to the boundary, ease of access, parking, safety, productivity, facilities and time frame for commencement, to list a few. Each site has its strengths and weaknesses. Seasonal timing for a nursery is important as we're governed by nature, with both species propagation occurring in the spring and early summer window. For this reason, it is imperative that we are operational on site by or before the 1st of July 2025 or potentially lose a full 12 months. The nursery is vibrant and active throughout the year, from researching, seedling management and a raft of other programs. Our proposed model has a ramping component of increasing seedling production to 60,000 plus over a 5-year plan. Our strategy is well considered. As ratepayers, we are cognizant of the expectation of our community of maximum benefit whilst being cost effective. We believe the 5-year co-contribution funding model meets the pub test. The volunteer dollar value co-contribution every year is significant. The most important outcome is the benefit of the nursery hub provides to the whole community and future generations, not just some. In closing, we ask you to reflect for a moment and ask yourself, what environmental legacy are you going to leave for the great-great-grandchildren of our region? Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. And that was a very impressive presentation. Thank you for putting that together. I do have one question and then I'll open it up for members. You talk about a 5-year co-contribution from council. How much money are you looking for council to contribute?
We produced a sorry, is that working? Sorry, my apologies with it. We have produced a second document that was part of the unsolicited bid process with it that we've forwarded through to the CEO. I did take the liberty of actually sending that to the councillors last week or early last week, but I understand you have so much work to do. You may not have seen the costings in there, but it starts off in the first year at about $100,000 and then actually slowly diminishes once we get plant and equipment operational with it. It also supports technical advice and assistance. Nurseries of this nature, there's a lot of work in understanding seedlings, particular species. There's a community nursery alliance where there's a lot of work being done, particularly threatened species. The commercial operators will produce product that is very easy to produce and is commercially viable, where a lot of the species that we have problems with across the Fleurieu are things that aren't necessarily previously been researched, and that'll link into the likes of the botanical garden guys and whatever. So
you're saying $100,000 in the first year, but that should decrease?
Yes, there's a reasonably high costs in relation to things like benches to actually be manufactured. We also hope to be able to, once we've got some sort of indication from the chamber as to whether this might be of appeal to move forward, it gives us the opportunity to start approaching other avenues or sources of funding that we've already identified. I mean, for argument's sake, there currently is the grassroots grants available now through the Landscape Board, which shut off in April. The difficulty of applying for those is they look for co-contribution, and at this stage we've really got nothing to say to them other than saying, here's an idea.
Any questions, Councillor Mann, then Councillor Henderson, and then Councillor Karemba?
Thank you, Mayor Jenkins. Yeah, thank you for coming tonight in the presentation. I guess in terms of looking at, it's really the funding around it as well. I know we're looking tonight at sort of a capital budget for the next financial year at around 150,000.
3 minutes left.
Thank you. For potentially for a community garden. I know there's a number of groups in the community and individuals looking for a community garden. if this was something that council was to look at in partnership or supporting you, do you see yourself being able to work with other community groups and in terms of developing a community garden and having that accessible for really the entire community, noting the amount of funds going into it?
Yeah, thanks. Look, I think we are fully aware of efficiencies of communities working together. There's nothing that we would have against working with other community groups of like-minded people. You know, we all need toilets, we all need a cup of tea, those sort of things. I might say the 100,000 up front is actually 50,000 in a startup phase. That includes employee as well, part-time. And the other 50,000 is actually to do with infrastructure to set up for a longer term utilisation. So that 50,000 is actually investment in the future, if you know what I mean. So you could say it's more than just the first year funding, so to speak. But as far as working with other groups, absolutely, we're friendly people.
Thank you. Councillor Henderson?
Mine is a suggestion rather than a question, and I really support your ideas. I'm really in favour of what you're all about. And I don't want to offend anybody by this suggestion, but can I ask you to reconsider the name Biodiversity Nursery? Because that's actually a nonsensical term. I'll read you the definition of biodiversity. Biodiversity refers to the variety of life on Earth, encompassing all plants, animals, ecosystems, and the genetic variety found in them. It includes the variety within species, between species, and among ecosystems. This is from the draft, Biodiversity Act for South Australia, excuse me, of which I was part of the working party for as the presiding member of the Native Vegetation Council. So you can't actually grow biodiversity. You can grow plants to encourage biodiversity. So you could call your nursery a native plant nursery or an indigenous plant nursery, but biodiversity nursery is a nonsensical term.
Thank you. I'll ask that there wasn't a question, it was a statement. I'll ask Councillor Koremba, given that we're out of time, but that's something you might want to consider.
Thanks. I'm not too fussed about the name. What's your preferred location out of those three? If you had to choose one, what would be the optimum location to achieve what you're trying to achieve?
Look, I think the next to the police station actually has a visibility aspect to it. Part of the nursery is selling plants to the public, and the experience of other nurseries such as Hindmarsh Island is that is an important part of their income. So being next to the police station on that road would be our preferred site. It's flat and all the other things that we need. Canton would come second, but that is more out of the way in our visibility desires.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We are out of time. The council will be talking about what it can invest money in when we have our budget discussions on the 6th of April. And so I'm sure that this will come up in discussion fully. I know that you, Mark, have been having some meetings with the CEO along with Councillor Kemp, and I'm sure that they will keep me and the rest of the chamber informed in terms of your meetings, but we wish you well.
Thank you.
Victoria might just add something quickly.
Sorry, just for clarity for members, just to refresh your memories, Biodiversity Victor Harbour has submitted an unsolicited proposal which was released from confidence. So they are actually in the process of going through an unsolicited proposal with council. So this is not new. We've obviously, council has endorsed that partnership as in looking at opportunities for us to collaborate. So it's not, although they are more than capable of going out independently, but what they are looking for is a partnership with council. So in our budget discussions, there is opportunities for both capital and operating if it's council's asset that's shared with Biodiversity Victor Harbour. So just to clarify that, and it is part of our budget discussions on the 6th of April.
6th of April. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And if it's okay, we'll pick the plants back up, but you're more than welcome to come out and a planting anytime you like.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next part is questions from the gallery, and there are no questions from the gallery this evening. And there are no petitions. We'll just wait for Mark to come around and pick up the rest of the plants. Or thank you. Our next item of business is 9.1 and is the outstanding resolutions for March 2024. The recommendation is that Council receive and note the outstanding resolutions report. Moving that way, Councillor Henderson, and do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. Are there any, do you want to say anything? Are there any questions or anything anybody wants to debate? No. In that case, I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you very much. 9.2 is the representative review, and the recommendation is that the representative review process be commenced and a budget commitment of $30,000 is provided. The reason for that now is the pre-budget commitment so that Council can engage a consultant to start getting on with it rather than wait, because it's something that needs to be done and is a legislated process. Would someone like to move the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Corimba. And do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Schofield. Do either of you want to speak to that? Does anybody want to speak to that? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. 9.3, live streaming and recording of council meetings policy. And the recommendation is that Council adopt the reviewed live streaming and recording of council meetings policy as provided in attachment A. And just to highlight that this is not anything to do with the Code of Practice of Meeting Procedures, which we've been through before. It's around the policy that Council has. Councillor Henderson moving that way, and a seconder, please. Councillor Corimba seconding that. Do either of you have any questions or want to speak to that? Does anybody have any questions? No? All those in favour? And that is carried. Thank you. 9.4, the Community Satisfaction Survey, a action plan progress, and this is just an information report that Council receive and note the survey and action plan progress as reported in attachment A. Would someone like to move that way? Thank you, Councillor Schofield and Councillor Henderson. Do either of you want to speak to that? Does anybody want to speak to that? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Gee, we're getting through this meeting quickly. We're home by 7 o'clock. Don't speak too soon, Victoria just said. We now have the draft 2024-25 capital budget. And the recommendation is that Council endorse the preparation of the draft 24-25 annual business plan capital inclusions based on capital listings provided at attachment A, noting that the Bush Chapel proposition is not included in the total amount of $23,281,300. Moving that way, Councillor Henderson. And seconding that. Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. Either of you want to speak to this?
Just to say that we need to endorse this so that administration can prepare the annual business plan in a timely manner.
Thank you. And this is going to be going out to public consultation, so it's not the end of it, and things can be changed if you need to. Any further discussion? No? No? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you very much. 9.6, advisory and working groups, terms of reference. What I may do is do recommendation 1 and 4 on block, if you're happy for that to be done. 1, 2, 4. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4 on block. If someone would like to move that on block. Councillor Henderson, thank you. Councillor Henderson, and seconded by Councillor Karemba. Do either of you want to speak to those? All those in favour? Oh, sorry, does anybody want to speak to them? Sorry, I didn't give you a chance. Sorry, Angela Schiller.
Just in point 9, and I mentioned in our workshop that we, it still is gender specific about the CEO, whether you're going to worry about changing that on 9 point, whatever it is. So it's not a biggie, but if you want to keep those terms of reference as a, in the future, it might be a good amendment just to make it
All right.
mutual.
I don't think so. This is 9 point. This is
In the terms of reference, most terms of reference that have been put out for these committees and advisory groups,
yep.
just the use of the word her is in the terms of reference. And I did mention it at a workshop that we had in the past.
We can make an amendment to that. I don't think it needs an amendment, but I think the CEO is aware of it now, and she's just noting down to change it to be non-gender specific. But that's a good pickup. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? And we're looking at recommendation 1, 2, 3, and 4. If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Recommendation 5, that Council appoint the following community sector representatives to the Victor Harbour Oval Complex Planning Group to conclude at the periodic elections in November 2026. I'll read them out for the sake of those people in the gallery. Football Club, Jeff Carroll and Simon Grenfell as the proxy. Victor Harbour Cricket Club, Tony Eden and Cameron Green as proxy. Victor Harbour High School, Kate Burdett and Simon Harris as proxy. Victor Harbour Tennis Club, Christian Shield and Nicole Millard as proxy. Victor Harbour Netball Club, Debbie White and Lee DePledge as proxy. Victor Harbour Football RSL Management Board, Kent Johncock and Rob Heaslip as proxy. Would somebody like to move that? Thank you, Councillor Schiller, and seconded Councillor Schofield. Do either of you want to speak to that? Does anybody want to speak to that? Councillor Karemba?
Just a question. Does the basketball committee not partake in this?
This is for the Victor Harbour Oval.
Okay, so it's
So
the Oval.
they're not
Okay,
part
my
of that.
apologies. Thank you.
Any further questions or any debate on that? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Number 6, that Council endorse renaming the Boating Facilities Working Group to the Boating and Marine Facilities Advisory Group and endorse the terms of reference as provided under the separate cover. Councillor Schofield, you're moving that way. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Mann. Do either of you want to speak to that? Does anybody want to speak to that? Councillor Karemba.
Thank you. Just a question for the CEO. Were all the recommendations that the committee members put forward, were they at all entertained or?
Predominantly, with the exception of taking out the elements of the investment attraction strategy and putting them into the terms of reference for the boating and marine facilities. But with the broadening of the terms of reference from just a working party to an advisory group, and also expanding its role than just delivery of the strategy, it actually gives the working group, the advisory group, much more capacity to work on things on behalf of council, like the investment attraction strategy, which has reference to the blue water economy.
Okay, thanks.
Any further discussion or questions? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. The council endorsed the terms of reference for the newly established Encounter Bay Recreation Grounds Planning Group as provided under separate cover. If someone would like to move that way. Councillor Henderson, thank you. And a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Schofield. Do either of you want to speak to that? Anybody want to speak to that? All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, so the next one is that council call for nominations for chairperson and council member representative positions on the planning group. And if there are more than 2 people, it's only 2 people that we want. If there's more than 2 people, then we will go to a vote. So if you'd like to put up your hand if you are interested in being the chairperson or a council member representative on that group. I'd be happy to be a council representative. You'd be happy with that as well, Councillor Crember?
Yeah, I'll just be happy to be a council member representative.
Council member representative. Does Councillor Schofield? You're happy to be the chairperson? All right, I'm happy, Councillor Crember, if you'd like to be the representative rather than me. I can go along to those meetings and just sit in and listen to them. So the council, if we do 8 and 9 together, and that 9 is that council receive and note the nominations from Councillor Crember and Councillor Schofield for the chairperson and council member representative positions. Someone like to move that way? Thank you, Councillor Schiller and Councillor Henderson. Anybody want to talk about those? No. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. So we don't need to do number 10. And number 11 is really the same as number 9. So we've done number 11. Number 12, council appoint the following community sector representatives to the Encounter Bay Recreation Grounds Planning Group, commencing the 26th of March and concluding at the periodic elections in November. Encounter Bay Bowling Club, Barry Niven, Heather Cochrane as proxy. Encounter Bay Cricket Club, Todd Kelly, Cameron Linton as proxy. Encounter Bay Football Club, Wayne Tonkin, Jeffrey Burden and Ray Clark as proxy. Victor Harbour Hockey Club, Alicia Anderson, Anthony Wellington as proxy. Encounter Bay Netball Club, Ness Jurgens, Cal Clare as proxy. Victor Harbour Riding Club, Tracy Lee and Natalie Ranger as proxy. Can I have someone to move that way, please? Thank you, Councillor Henderson, seconding Councillor Schofield. Do either of you want to speak to that? Does anybody have any questions or wants to speak to that? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. And I'll do number 13 and 14 on block, if you're all happy with that. 13 is that council endorse administration proceeding to an expression of interest for the recruitment of community sector representatives for the Agribusiness Working Group, Art and Culture Advisory Group, Heritage Advisory Group and Boating and Marine Facilities Working Group, and that a report be brought to a future council meeting to consider and appoint the community representatives. Moving that way, Councillor Schofield and seconding Councillor Mackenzie. Do either of you want to speak to that? Does anybody want to speak to that? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. All right. Victoria's just suggested that we do go back and do 11 because at number 9 we just noted the nominations. So numbers 11 is that council appoint Councillor Schofield to chairperson and Councillor Crember to the position of council member representative to the Encounter Bay Recreation Ground Planning Group. Moving that way, Councillor Henderson. Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie, seconding that. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Community and Development, which is 10, and the Volunteer Week small grants. The recommendation is that council endorse that a panel consisting of council members from the Fleurieu Region Community Services Advisory Committee and relevant staff will assess the applications received under the Volunteer Small Grants Program and provide recommendations to the Chief Executive Officer for a final decision and awarding. Would someone like to move that way? Thank you, Councillor Schiller, and seconding that. Thank you, Councillor Crember. Either of you want to speak to that? No. Anybody want to speak to that? All those in, Councillor Mann?
Thank you, Mayor Jenkins. Yeah, I think just to add to this one, it's the volunteers in our community doing incredible work, and I think it's great that we have this scheme to show that appreciation, and then for them to, the organisations to show appreciation to the volunteers under it. I think it would be a good idea to have a look at through our next budget process for the operating for next year, potentially increasing those amounts for each group. I know costs have gone up a bit in the last few years as well, and these amounts have stayed the same for some time. So I think it's a good idea not only to reward and honour our volunteers, it may help to also encourage others, but I think doing that as part of that budget process is probably a better way of reviewing it, if that's possible.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. And yes, I was going to say something to that effect afterwards, because when we look at the grant amount, those groups with 10 or under volunteers get $50, 11 to 20 volunteers get $100, and 20 plus volunteers get $150. That's actually not very much for those community groups in this day and age to be able to thank their volunteers for the hard work that they do. And we certainly have got amazing volunteers in our community. Does anybody else want to speak to this? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried, thank you. We have round 2 of the Festivals and Events Sponsorship Program. I'm happy to do all 5 recommendations en bloc, if you're happy to move that way, if no one's got any objections. You're moving that way, Councillor Henderson, and seconding that, Councillor Schofield. Does anybody have any questions? No debate? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried, thank you. And I'd like to say thank you very much to the committee that was in charge of the undergoing the Festival and Event Sponsorship Program round 2 grants. I think you made some really good decisions, and I can see that it would have been a difficult process to undergo, but I'm really looking forward to the different programs that are going to be able to be carried out in our community. Corporate and customer services. We have the receiving and noting the customer service statistics from October to December last year. If someone would like to move that way. Thank you, Councillor Karemba, and seconding that. Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. Either of you want to speak to that or have any questions? Does anybody have any questions in relation to those statistics? I know that stats are not our favourite topic. No? They are? You do? Yes, Councillor Karemba.
I was just interested to note the boat ramp camera, 7,298 views.
Yeah.
That's actually, yeah, quite a lot. Very surprised.
There's some really interesting things there, Councillor Karemba. Indeed, sort of one of the things that I was interested in is that in-person visits decreased by 5.6% and phone calls decreased by 4%. And there's a movement towards people using the internet a lot more, which I think is great in our council area. Does no other questions? All those in favour of receiving and noting that report? Thank you. Anyone against? Sorry, Councillor Schiller, you for or against? For, thank you. That's carried. Environment and infrastructure. So 12.1 is the licence transfer from the Strawberries Galore food van in the Causeway Plaza, and the recommendation is that council approve the licence transfer to Emma Gardner, the new owner of Strawberries Galore. Moving that way, Councillor Schofield, and do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Karemba. Do either of you want to speak to that? Councillor Schofield.
Look, I'll just say that the vans that we have down there, and including this one in particular, are extremely popular with our visitors. And we even get questions throughout the week, why aren't they there? But they do make a lovely attraction and enhance that area for not only the visitors to Victor Harbour, our local residents as well.
Thank you, Councillor Schofield, and I completely agree with you. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add? Put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. 12.2, correction of road encroachment on Waitpinga Road. And I'm happy to do that recommendation on block. If you are happy to do that on block. Would somebody like to move that on block? Councillor Henderson, thank you. And seconding that. Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. Do either of you want to speak to that? Does anybody want to speak to that or have any questions about it? In that case, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Minutes of council meetings. The first one is the Southern Community Transport Scheme Advisory Committee meeting on the 21st of February. The recommendation is that council receive and note those minutes. Councillor Henderson moving that way. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Schiller. Either of you want to speak to those minutes? Anybody have any questions about those minutes? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Recreation Centre Management Committee meeting, February 2024. Again, the recommendation is receiving and noting the minutes. Someone like to move that way? Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie, and thank you, Councillor Mann, for seconding that. Do either of you want to speak to that? Does anybody have any questions about those minutes? Councillor Karemba.
Thank you. Just regarding, there's a comment here, something, a raised concern by the GSABA regarding the ventilation of the stadiums. That was done in Feb. When do you think they would find out if we're doing anything or what's happening with that? It says investigating options on ventilation. I've just had a few people from the basketball community reach out just recently, that's all.
We can take that on notice and get back to you, Councillor Karemba. Thank you. Are there any further questions? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. 13.3, CEO Performance Review Committee minutes on the 21st of February. Again, the recommendation is to receive and note those minutes. Would someone like to move that way? Thank you, Councillor Schiller, and seconded Councillor Schofield. Do either of you want to speak to them? Does anybody want to speak to them or have any questions? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. (13.4) Special Audit and Risk Committee minutes on the 6th of March. Recommendation is that council receive and note those minutes. Would someone like to move that way? Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie, and seconding that. Thank you, Councillor Karemba. Do either of you want to speak to the Audit Committee minutes? Does Councillor Karemba?
Sorry, Mayor, I did have something, but I've just realised it's obviously in confidence, so I can't really ask it.
It'll come up again. Anybody have any questions? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Subsidiary and representative reports. 14.1, the Fleurieu Regional Aquatic Centre Authority second quarter budget review, and the recommendation is receiving the budget review, noting there are no changes to constituent council contributions. Let's get some water. Would someone like to move that way? Thank you very much, Councillor Henderson, and seconding that, Councillor Schiller. Do either of you want to speak to that? Does anybody have any questions or want to speak to that? In that case, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. There are no matters of urgency. There are no questions on notice. Are there any questions without notice? Councillor Henderson, then Councillor Schiller, and then Councillor Karemba.
A number of years ago, a couple of years ago, I believe, Council was granted funding of $446,000 from the Commonwealth Bridge Renewal Programme with a deadline of 30th of May 2025. We haven't been able to meet that deadline because we didn't incorporate into this year's budget that particular bridge that the funding was for. So recently, 2 weeks ago, we got confirmation from the Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Communications and the Arts, so it's a mouthful, isn't it? That grant funding for that has now been reduced to zero. My questions are, what is the reputational damage of us as a local government authority having not used that funding? And how will this affect the future grant funding applications?
I'll need to take that on notice and to see what happened in regards to the funding, because I know that was some that we looked to reinvest, but I'm not sure what the outcome of that was.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schiller.
A number of weeks ago, I sent in a question that hasn't been answered, but I thought I'd bring it up in the chamber because we have, I was hoping Stuart may be here, and we've got Marilyn here. With the City of Victor Harbor, at the moment, there are a lot of dead and dying trees, particularly along the Hindmarsh River walking trail. And my question was whether, as a City of Victor Harbor, we've ever had arborists looking at what's actually going on, because there are many large trees that are dying.
I know Jodie has, Jodie Roberts, our Manager of Environment and Infrastructure, has that question, and I know she's been talking to her team. So Andy Combs, unfortunately, is currently on leave and has been on leave since your question came in, and that would sit within his area, but I'm happy to follow up and get back to you. But I know we do investigations and have arborists look at diseased trees, but as to those specific ones, I'm not sure at this stage.
Councillor Henderson, have you got something you can add?
To my knowledge, when I was on the tree assessment panel, the arborists were only called in to look at diseased trees where they were in a public place like street trees, because arborists are very, very expensive. They cost several thousands of dollars just to look at a single tree.
Victoria will get back, or the CEO will get back to you, and we'll look at that. But yes, it is expensive. And Councillor Karemba, you have a question.
Yeah, I've got a few questions on two different topics. The first one is regarding the dangerous dog that we currently have in our, not possession, I guess, in our care till we have a finding. What facility is that dog being kept at?
Is it Sagewood Kennels?
Okay.
Because our kennels, we can only retain the dog for 72 hours. And so, because it's not really for long-term care, and because of the current dispute, it needs to be located there. So that's where it currently is.
Thank you. Next question is regarding Encounter Lakes and Franklin Lakes. Has the pumping regime to and from Franklin Lakes changed since January 7th?
Not to my knowledge, there is still the current regime, but I'm happy to take it on notice. I know there's been some questions raised by residents of the Franklin Lakes in regards to the development on the Prime Boulevard, and we've been following up on those questions that we received last week.
Okay, I'll just go through the questions just in case these are set different ones. But does the volume of water exchange meet the design parameters, and have they been maintained, recorded as per the management plan?
These are questions that one of the residents sent through to both you and myself. I've sent them on to Jodie to find out the answers to those questions so that we can get back to him.
Okay.
I think we'll take them on notice so that Jodie can finish doing her inquiries.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Are there any further questions without notice? There are no motions on notice. Are there any motions without notice? No. All right, we move on to item 20.1 and the confidential items. The first recommendation is to go into confidence because this agenda item is information, the disclosure of which would involve the unreasonable disclosure of information concerning personal affairs of any person living or dead. The disclosure of this information would on balance be contrary to the public interest. Would someone like to move that way? Thank you, Councillor Henderson. And seconding that, Councillor Schiller, thank you. Does anybody want to discuss that? All those in favour? Those against? That's carried, thank you.